1944. Anzio. Mud clings to canvas and boot leather. The air tastes of wet wool and gun smoke. The tent flaps beat like a tired heart. June Barker palms a Red Cross armband, white now gray with ash, and her fingers press the fabric as if feeling a pulse. An ampule skitters past a stretcher, catches a sliver of light, then falls silent. Dr. McLeod leans over a pale face. Wilhelm Krauss breathes shallow, each inhale a small, stubborn sound. A sergeant snaps from the entrance. "Only our wounded!" An orderly, voice thin with fear, says, "He's the enemy." June lifts the armband into the sergeant's view and answers, "He's a patient." A distant whine grows into a scream. Canvas flashes, sandbags shudder, and she reaches for the stretcher as the tent roof. Mercy where hate was expected. In the shell-scored quiet of Anzio, June Barker lifts a soot-dark Red Cross armband and refuses an order to leave the enemy soldier on her ward. The oath she swore and the Geneva mark on every stretcher are not words to her. They are the work of a syringe of morphine, a damp bandage, a measured hand on a dying man's chest. Her choice bends the morning's orders into a single rule: patient first, uniform second. If stories of courage under oath move you, stay with this account to the end and consider subscribing for more. The Post is a forward British aid station on the beachhead at Anzio, February 1944. A lined knot of canvas, a dug-in supply dump, two tired stretchers propped against sandbags. June Barker is the senior nurse. Dr. Arthur McLeod has just arrived from the rear. Their job is simple and brutal: stop bleeding, prevent shock, and move the wounded to a safer hospital if they can. Supplies are thin: a few ampules of morphine, frayed bandages, one stretcher for every 3 men. Shelling rattles the poles, and the trudge of boots from nearby trenches never really stops. Triage here means a quick decision. Who can be saved now with what is left? The Red Cross marks the tents and the stretchers. Under the Geneva Convention, wounded and medical staff are protected in principle, though protection is fragile under fire. The medical oath June and Arthur carry is plain: treat the sick regardless of uniform. Oath over orders, mercy over propaganda. She moves with the practiced economy of a nurse who has learned to save seconds where she can. June checks the ampules again, tucks a fresh roll of bandage into her sleeve, and ties the Red Cross armband so it rides high on her forearm. Dr. McLeod watches with a pale, steadying breath. He takes notes with fingers that still tremble from the ride forward. Wilhelm Krauss lies under a thin blanket, eyes half closed, the wrist of a man who might once have been a baker or a teacher. Outside, a sergeant argues over a radio about space on the next truck. There are more wounded than seats, and the order from command is blunt: evacuate our men first. The risk is clear. Staying could mean a court-martial, or worse, the collapse of the little medical bubble that keeps everyone alive. June folds her hands around a dying man's one warm palm and, without drama, begins to work. A dragnet of shouts and canvas splitting open. A patrol staggered in. 2 stretcher-bearers hauling a man whose leg was a wrapped ladder of blood under bandage. June moves into the center of the chaos, hands already wet with antiseptic. She orders a blanket, checks the pulse, then knots a tourniquet with careful fingers. An ampule of morphine is held like a promise between her thumb and forefinger. She breaks it, draws the dose, and watches the man's face soften. "Gentle," she tells the bearer. "Steady." Dr. McLeod steadies the lamp and murmurs a time check as though to keep the sky from collapsing. The moment is surgical and ordinary: a nurse, a doctor, a man between breaths. Her gestures focus the mess into a single priority: the life under her palms. The oath is not a sentence on paper here. It is a rhythm of hands that will not leave a stretcher. A half-hour later, the triage table is a ledger of urgency. Can this man travel? Will this one die without surgery? Who needs morphine now? June makes marks on strips of paper and pins them on collars. The order from the transport sergeant hangs in the air, sharp and unreadable. priority to our wounded. A corporal leans in, voice low and fierce. "We have to get our lads to the hospital first." June replies without raising her head. "We get the ones who can be taken." The decision is technical. Evacuate those who will survive the ride, stabilize those who cannot. It is also moral in a way that tastes like iron, the color of drying blood. June's hands are steady because she has practiced saying no to quick answers. She will not let a uniform decide a place on a stretcher. In the makeshift operating space between two poles, Dr. McLeod cuts with a calm he borrows from books. June passes instruments and holds gauze. Wilhelm Krauss is wheeled in, pale but alive, his breathing caught in that thin panic air of shock. "He's not speaking English," an orderly says. June replies, "He doesn't need to speak." A bullet is lodged near an artery. McLeod plans the extraction with a quick map of the wound, and June arranges the sponges as if setting out music. They have one set of instruments and one pair of hands for stitches. Every extra minute burns morphine stock. The procedure is a negotiation with scarcity. Clamp here, cut there, keep the blood from finding the sandbags. When the field suture is done, June tucks a note in the patient's blanket, name if known, time, and the mark that means care was given. The small paper will travel with him like a passport of mercy. Night brings a low wind, and the ward becomes a chorus of groans and the rattle of metal on canvas. A Canadian gunner shares a blanket with a German cook. Silence shapes the space between them. June moves down the rows, checking dressings and counting breaths. She presses morphine into the hands of those who cannot sleep from pain and pockets a little of her own fear back into the fold. A supply truck that should have arrived does not. A clerk brings bad news. The evacuation list has been cut. "Only our wounded on the trucks now," the clerk says, voice flat with orders from higher. June's eyes briefly find the armband at her sleeve. She tightens it and replies, "Then we keep him alive until the list changes." Her decision shifts the ration of care by inches. It does not make headlines, but it changes which chests rise in the dark. The friction at the edge of the camp widens into open accusation on the morning after a heavy barrage. A supply sergeant bars the tent and slaps a stamped order on the canvas. No prisoners on evacuation. The sergeant's face is burned clean of doubt. "You heard the order," he says. A corporal echoes, "You risk everything for a Krauss." June's reply is soft and firm. "My risk is to save who I can." The confrontation is not loud. It is a cold record kept by men who measure loyalty by uniform. Dr. McLeod steps forward, voice firm in a way that shows he has chosen sides with his hands more than his rank. "We are medical staff," he says. "Our duty is not to command." The accusation that she is a traitor lands like a stone in a pond. It splashes words around her that she cannot catch. She meets the eyes of the man beside her and keeps working. There will be consequences, reports, questions, perhaps a formal reprimand. But for now, the ward continues. She knows the cost. She also knows that leaving would be a different kind of cost. Evacuation becomes improvisation. June lays out stretchers, orders them by chance and need, then folds 2 spaces to squeeze another life aboard a truck meant for fewer. She negotiates with drivers, trading a favor for a seat, and coils bandages into places that will save weight and space. A young private bargains money and cigarettes, offering them in exchange for a place for a wounded enemy. "Take this," he pleads to a driver, voice shaky. The driver looks at the armband, then at the private, then at the patient shivering on the ground, and nods. "One more," he grunts. The convoy is a patchwork of scraps, canvases lashed, people shoulder to shoulder, a German and a Canadian breathing in the same metal of the truck. June stays at the ramp, securing the last strap, and pushes the vehicle into the churn of the road. The moral line that once seemed clear has become a rope that might hold or snap, depending on who pulls it. In the quiet, after the trucks leave, June sits by the lamp and writes down names. Who was taken, who stayed, who asked for water, and who asked for news of home. Wilhelm, awake and coherent now, fingers the Red Cross armband she had tied on his sleeve. He tries a few halting words in broken English. "Sister," he says, then stops, searching for the right word. June sits with him and listens to the rhythm of his breath as if it will teach her a language. The camp hums with rumor. Some praise her, others call her reckless. A junior lieutenant approaches and asks with that official politeness that always hides a knife, "Did you follow orders?" June answers simply, "I followed a man's need." The lieutenant notes it down. The records will outlast the memories. She does not regret the choice. She feels the weight of being seen differently. She feels the steadiness of a hand that kept a chest beating through a night of shells. Wilhelm wakes in the gray hour clutching at bandage and memory. His breath is a rough calendar of the night. He reaches blindly for the armband and finds June's fingers instead. "Danke," he says, voice a thin thread of German. June answers with a word she learned from a map, "You're safe," and pats his hand, then slides a cup of water to his lips. An orderly hovers, teeth clenched, wanting to ask why she cares. June only smooths the blanket and murmurs, "Keep steady." The gesture is small. It rearranges fear into something handleable. Her care is a non-verbal oath written in touch. Morning brings a new stream of wounded and a new shortage. A driver arrives with a crate of supplies that has been chewed by salt and rain. Inside, a single unopened ampule of morphine gleams like a coin. The camp counts it, then argues ownership. A corporal steps forward, voice clipped. "We need that for Corporal Lewis." June takes the ampule, holds it up and says, "We use it where it will save a life now." Dr. McLeod looks to her for the clinical choice. She points to a boy on the stretcher whose face has gone slate. The man with the name and the medal will wait if the boy can be steadied. The choice is precise and ugly. It is the sort of arithmetic that does not fit in uniforms. June makes the clinical call and keeps the ampule. Mercy here requires a cold finger and a warm heart. A letter arrives from home, damp at the edges and heavy with folded domestic life. A sister urging patience, a brother's joke about the rain. June reads it for a breath and then tucks it into the pocket of her tunic like a token against despair. She allows herself one private smile, a small permission before she returns to the ward. The letter keeps her household steady inside her as shells keep rattling the tent outside. Papers and personal artifacts in the ward, someone's photograph, a dog-eared hymn, tell the team that enemy and ally alike had lives that predated the war. June lays the photograph beside Wilhelm and says nothing. The quiet makes common ground without language. A squadron of wounded arrives from a nearby skirmish with faces raw from frost. One man, younger than he looks, has lost a hand. He gropes for sense and for something to blame. "Why him?" he asks, not pointing. June slides a new bandage over his stump and replies, "Because we can make it less terrible now." The answer is practical, not grand. She teaches him to tie his bandage for travel and hands him a contraband cigarette. A medic nearby spits that she is soft. That softness will cost lives. June holds the cigarette between two fingers and hands it back. Small comforts can become reprieve, she believes. Reprieve can be a way to keep a man from unraveling. She will not confuse tenderness with weakness. At midday, a supply officer arrives with papers and a glare that could have been sharpened on a file. He stamps forms, reads aloud the encoded priorities, and when he reaches the name of Wilhelm Krauss, he frowns. "We cannot be seen saving prisoners when men are dying beside us," he says. Dr. McLeod answers with the kind of bluntness that comes from watching a heart slow. "We are medical people. The injured come to the tents." The officer's pen hovers like a verdict. He writes anyway that an inquiry will follow. June does not argue. She feels the weight of paperwork as a slow, patient thing that will one day try to fold guilt into neat columns. For now, she keeps a hand on the patient and lets the forms be what they will. The oath is immediate. Bureaucracy will be a later storm. A quiet crisis tests improvisation. A fever sweeps through the ward. Sweat, delirium, the kind of thin, high breath that makes other men wake with fear. Antibiotics are the silent question. They are scarce. June sets up a rota for fluids, cool compresses, and childlike routines, feeding, wiping, ensuring that no one is left to stare into fever alone. Doctor. McLeod doses paracetamol when it will not interfere with shock protocols, and speaks softly about temperature curves so that the men hear a map in his words. The work is low-level and essential. It is what keeps infection from turning survivable wounds into death. June thinks of the oath as a continued act, not only to stop bleeding but to hold a fevered hand through the night. Rumor is a quick blade in camp. Someone claims that a senior officer will visit and that those seen treating prisoners will be written up. The ward steels itself. June threads through the cots checking names and making sure the Red Cross is visible on each stretcher. She irons a small square of cloth between her fingers until it lies flat and white. A corporal, skeptical and watchful, mutters, "Show them the bandage. Show them we did our duty." June replies, "The bandage shows the duty. The badge is for them to read." She understands that symbols can protect, and that sometimes the armband is not just cloth but a shield against gossip and accusation. She wears it as both badge and promise. One afternoon, a boy in army khaki leans over a stretcher and whispers to Wilhelm in German, a story about a sister who baked bread and how the smell of yeast could make winter feel less like winter. Wilhelm smiles with half a face, as if the memory stitches him more than any suture. The boy's mother had once been a baker in a village June had never seen. The story crosses language like a bridge. She writes the name of the baker on a strip of paper and tucks it with Wilhelm's note. Small inventories of life, names, trades, birthdays, become a record against anonymous dying. June thinks of these notes as small legal acts that declare a person more than an enemy soldier. The pressure increases. An officer from logistics delivers a terse order that 3 stretchers must be cleared by evening. The consequence is clear. Some patients will travel, others will stay. A heated exchange breaks out between a driver and a corporal. "You promised us all," the driver says. "I promised to get them out," the corporal fires back. June steps between them, palms raised, and lays out the clinical plan. Who can endure transport? Who needs immobility? Who must wait? The voice is quiet because her list is specific. It gives the argument less room to roam. The decision is still a wound to the spirit, choosing who goes. She bears that choice like a bandage, tight and necessary. An incident with a young orderly named Harris shows how personal cost can look. He is ambushed by accusation. Someone discovered he put a loaf of stolen bread into Wilhelm's blanket. The mess hall catalogs theft as treason. Harris is brought before the senior NCOs. "You gave enemy food?" they ask, incredulous. Harris answers, "I gave him half my ration. He was shaking." June stands and says simply, "He was human." The NCOs glare. They file a report. Harris will pay in lost rations, perhaps in harder details. June's protection extends only so far. She cannot rewrite the ledger of punishment. She can, however, keep a hand on his shoulder and give a small smile that says she did not forget what he did. On a cold night, the camp is hit by a near miss. Canvas shivers, the earth kicks up like an animal, and a section of tent collapses. Men are knocked into each other. Someone calls for a roll call. June crawls under flaps with a lamp and finds a young private pinned by a fallen pole. The private is bleeding from a shallow wound and terrified. "Move me," he begs. June lifts with a grunt, calls for 2 men to brace, and frees him. She rigs a splint from a rifle and a spare board and speaks in clipped instructions to steady the limb. The private whispers, Are we safe? June straightens, dusting mud from her sleeve, and answers, We are as safe as we can make you. Safety here is a cup you pour into others. Her movement is oath enacted in muscle. An intelligence man arrives with a clipboard and jocular cruelty. He asks bluntly, Do you know the rules of engagement for prisoners? June replies without hesitation, They are patience. The man blinks at her certainty and moves on. Later, she hears a rumor that a complaint has already been filed by a higher command who saw the convoys and noted names. The complaint will trigger questions that Dr. McLeod and she will have to answer. The paperwork accumulates like ash, dry and inevitable. She signs forms and writes reports in a slow, obedient hand while her heart keeps the pace of the night watch. The legal machinery is cold. The ward's heartbeat is not. A lull in the stretchers allows a brief rehearsal of tenderness. June cleans a man's face with a rag and asks him where he lost himself before the war. He says, In a field of wheat. She smiles and says, Then you'll see it again. It is not prophecy, but a small promise. She will keep him until the map of his life returns. The men listen as if the promise is a navigational instrument. Her words carve roots through fear. Then the cruelty of bureaucracy surfaces in a small paper, a stamped note that the command expects compliance and that deviations will be reported. Dr. McLeod finds June bent over the lamp and places a hand lightly on her shoulder. You understand the risk, he says. I do, she answers. The exchange is not a debate. It is an inventory of cost. He offers to stand with her in testimony if needed, a practical pledge rather than a dramatic vow. They prepare themselves for inquiry by noting times, counting supplies, and ensuring their logs match the truth. The ward keeps a ledger so that truth can be shown later, not for vindication now, but to document that a hand did what it could. As the days blur, the small acts of mercy compound. A German prisoner who had been silent begins to hum a hymn at dusk. Others join in without language, leaning into the melody because music is the only grammar that crossed the trenches easily. June tips a tin of cocoa into a cup and slides it down a blanket. The man smiles, a small fissure of light. Someone murmurs, She's soft. Another man, older, replies, She is steady. The two adjectives nestle together in a way that tells them more about her than accusations ever will. Her steadiness is not softness. It is an insistence that care be consistent. News arrives that the evacuation schedule will be delayed again. Tempers fray and patience evaporates into argument. A sergeant, worn and tired, snaps at June. Why waste seats on them? She replies, Because a life is not a uniform pattern. The sergeant's face hardens as if the truth is a stone too heavy to lift. June looks at the men leaning on cots and counts the cost in the tilt of shoulders and the droop of eyelids. Mercy in practice is often a subtraction from comfort. She accepts the arithmetic and keeps working. Then a narrow, private moment brings clarity. Wilhelm, now more coherent, manages a laugh and tells June about a sister who would slap his knuckles when he lied about arriving late for supper. He says, She would not have left me. June thinks of her own sister's letters and of a household that expected a return. She feels the armband warm against her skin and realizes that her actions are a loop, what she would want for her own kin, what she gives to the unknown soldier now. The oath has become domestic in its immediacy. Treat the injured as you would treat family. An officer from the adjutant's office appears unexpectedly with a brass-bound stare. He reads reports aloud and then looks directly at June. Why did you put him on the list? He asks coldly. June answers, Because he was alive and because we had room to move him safely. He taps a pen on a ledger and says, You'll be noted. The note is a thin stick. It will bend in time. For now, the ward keeps breathing. June files the exchange in a pocket of practical memory and moves on. Records will be read. People will judge. She keeps a hand steady on the men who cannot defend themselves. A small scandal bubbles when a photograph of the mixed convoy passes from mouth to mouth, an image showing Allied and Axis wounded side by side. Some soldiers whisper that such images undermine morale. A sergeant throws the photograph down and says, "You should not have let them ride together." June kneels and picks it up, smoothing the crease and folding it into a report bundle with methodical care. For her, the photo is proof of a night's choices, a ledger showing who lived because someone refused to split life by uniform. She files it away as evidence, a quiet defense against accusation. An auxiliary nurse is injured when a shrapnel piece grazes the outer flap. The woman is shaken and refuses to leave her post. "They need me," she says. June checks the wound, dresses it simply, and whispers, "You hold on and I get you to the dressing station after the rush." The nurse nods, returning to the cots. The willingness to keep working under danger is contagious. June's steady presence makes staying more bearable. The moral landscape here is not abstract. It is a roster of who can keep going. Word reaches the camp that a visit from higher command is imminent and that an officer with a reputation for strict compliance will inspect the tents. The men brace themselves. June pins the armband neatly, cleans the lamp, and arranges the blankets so that the Red Cross insignia is visible. She knows symbol matters. It can be a shield or a target. When the officer arrives, he walks quickly through, eyes flicking, and pauses at Wilhelm's cot. He marks something on his pad and asks, "Who authorized this?" June answers, "We treated who came. We recorded who left." The officer's pen scratches again. He looks at her, then at the band on her arm, and moves on. The inspection will be in the record. The record will be used by someone later. For now, she keeps the lamps lit and hands ready. Late one night, with generator hum low and stars sparse, June sits and reties her armband. She thinks of the names on her list and of a future where the ink might stand up in court. She feels the armband not as a badge of defiance, but as a piece of cloth that remembers hands. Her reflections are practical. She knows she may be called to explain herself, and she knows what she will say. The oath is not an escape from consequence. It is a reasoned choice that accepts them. She folds the armband and places it against her heart, steadying herself for whatever comes next. Morning sun cuts the dust as a convoy waits. A logistics sergeant slaps down an order. No prisoners aboard. Shells fall closer now, each blast snapping the air as the argument at the truck ramp sharpens. June steps between the truck and the cot, palm flat on the stretcher. "You can't take him," she says. The sergeant barks, "Move!" Dr. McLeod rolls up his sleeve and offers blood. June meets the sergeant's eyes and answers, "Today, he is a patient. My oath is to that first." The truck doors stay shut. The sergeant's jaw tightens. His hand hovers near a holster. Men shift, some angry, some ashamed. Wilhelm, eyes wet, curls his fingers around June's glove. She lifts the armband higher, steady as a verdict. McLeod sets a needle and begins a slow transfusion, calm hands moving like a metronome. Engines cough, then idle. The morning holds its breath. The truck doors do not open. The truck idles and the camp exhales. Later, the Red Cross armband is found, streaked with soot and a faint smear of blood, folded into Wilhelm's blanket like a passport. An ampule lies empty on the tray. A ledger lists names, times, signatures. Reports are filed, a formal inquiry follows, and quiet thanks travel in letters home. Years on, the armband and a nurse's neat entry in a logbook remain as proof that someone chose to stay. Strength is restraint. Civilization is a choice. If this account moved you, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and explore more true stories of medicine and mercy under fire.